I'm Shuai, and I'm here to present our work on examining LGBTQ related concepts in the semantic web. This work was jointly conducted with my student, Maria Edemito. And more specifically, we are looking into the identity issues in the semantic web related to LGBTQ related concepts. So more specifically, we're looking into things such as link discovery, concept drift, ambiguity, and multilingual information reuse. I'm from the Free University in Amsterdam, by the way. For those people who are in the library systems, especially working in LGBTQ archives, you will see that actually quite a lot of these concepts are included in some of these commonly used structured vocabularies, thesauruses, or subject headings. They were published in all kinds of formats, and then I would like to introduce this umbrella term called conceptual models, just to be able to make my presentation a bit more convenient. In this study, we exclude the glossaries, vocabularies, or structured vocabularies, that are not linked data. So basically, don't expect me to present something about computational linguistics, although I will be talking about conceptual changes and drifts. We can start with some of these commonly used ones. Take, for example, Homosaurus. Homosaurus was developed here in Amsterdam, and then it was initially developed as a complementary material for LCSH, the Library of Congress subject headings, for the indexing of items and books and all the other things in the LGBTQ archive, which is called ILIA. And then later, of course, the team expanded to international. So this is only available in English with translation to Dutch. This is not enough, so people were trying to make some multilingual contributions to it. So one of the project was QLIT. So they did all the translation to Swedish. So most of these entities were actually from Homosaurus, and also some of them are specific to their work. So when it comes to the use, QLIT was jointly used with two other structured vocabularies for this big online database about Swedish literature. So then we also have other concepts, other concepts that are captured in other conceptual models. That includes Wikidata. So there's 507 languages based on our analysis about LGBTQ related concepts. And there's also GSSO, which is probably less familiar to this community. So that was in 77 languages. So of course, we also have other ones such as Yago and Wikipedia, which I will not cover in the presentation today. So these conceptual networks conceptual models are actually very important for libraries, especially for LGBTQ related archives or specific libraries dedicated to sex, gender, etc. So these are these kind of concepts have been published online as linked data, but there's all kinds of issues with it. So there has been, kind of like a concept, kind of like elephant in the room, that people know that there's concept drifting, concept evolution, concept convergence and divergence, but people don't really seem to be so willing to touch upon it because it's kind of like a mess. You also have multilingual representations, and then later you have language differences in terms of writing, etc. And of course, when it comes to different versions, how are you going to deal with the update? So these are all the things that are there. It's just not being handled very well. I'm in the present close. Okay. Sorry, I have to move out. But I would like to. But my words will continue. But my speaking will continue. So, as you can see here, we are really having all these problems, but it was not being studied very well. And one of the related work is about using well, examining LGBTQ related entities within the library setting. So this was done in a relatively shallow way, I would say. Another work that is related is about Another work that is related is about studying the overlap of Homosaurus and LCSH. The other one is not very commonly used for LC, the DGT. So some other people did also analysis about the mappings from Homosaurus to LCSH and addressed that indeed there could be possible issues, and especially when things are outdated. So with that being said, I'd like to also propose to study the identity issues and then see if there is any identity crisis as commonly seen in the semantic web. So we can move on. There you can see that we have some kind of so our approach is divided into two parts. One part is that we would like to construct a knowledge graph with extracted links, and then this is very much focused on only things related to identity related links, and also those ones about identity changes. Based on this knowledge graph, we would then look into, for example, link discovery, concept drift and ambiguity, as well as multilingual information reuse. So this is these research scenarios are all has its roots in the need of the community. So regarding the data engineering part, as I mentioned, we really extracted all the relations, all the links about identity and identity changes. So here, what we have is that we have the commonly used ones, such as Scholes exact match, close match, of course, also doubling core identifier, and then doubling core terms is replaced by as replaces. So and a bunch of others. What I would like to address here is that Wikidata has all kinds of issues. For example, we managed to fix the term, and then also we have to sometimes deal with situations where they link to a HTML page instead of the actual entity. Regarding the redirection, there's also some issues because it was not captured in, for example, Homosaurus, and then we found that 61 of them was actually not captured, and then only 2 of them were captured. Looking at the right side of the screen, you see Homosaurus in the middle. It shows that how important it is in terms of the role that it's playing in the field. Homosaurus version 1 up to version 2 up to version 3 were overall connected, except, well, kind of like version 1 is a little bit outdated, but the others were well connected. I would like to also address that we only have those links from Wikidata to LCSH that is restricted to the domain of LGBTQ related concepts. The others we do not know. And so this gives us a knowledge graph of 19,000 entities and 17,000 links. So this is, and then based on this, we can then compute the weakly connected components. So the reason that we compute the weakly connected components is that we would like to see that a cluster that specifically deal with some kind of concepts there. So this is the moment that we believe that we want to see how possible it is to get experts involved, to see how they can do the manual examination. To do so, we first look at all the sizes. It turned out that even the largest one is within the scope of manual examination, so that is 45, and then 36 and 36 and 35. So that was okay. So these weakly connected components really have shows all kinds of properties that I'm going to explain in a bit. So our first research scenario applies to link discovery. So this is a very important one because this goes back to how experts in the domain deal with the development of these large-scale conceptual models. So this is because at the beginning, when people start to take into consideration of the concepts or deciding which one to take into consideration, they would take other ones as references. However, very soon they would then lose track of for example, which concept comes from where. So, and then at the very end, before they were publishing it, then they think, I really have to add all these links. So this was done manually, and then it has all kinds of issues. So we would like to add those links that's supposed to be there, and then we would like to do this automatically. So indeed, if you look at the weakly connected components, if there is one entity from one entity from this conceptual model and then one coming from the other one, so there could be a link added. This is because in that particular weakly connected components, this would kind of be ambiguation free because it's a one-to-one correspondence, right? So looking at Homosaurus, we'll be then taking Homosaurus would then be able to take advantage of so there could be 25 newly discovered links between Homosaurus and LCSH, and then you also have similar kind of issues when it comes to the examination of QLIT and the LCSH, and then we found newly 105 potentially correct links, and then we sent it to the experts. It turned out that the rate is actually higher than what we found, given that the methodology is actually very simple. So it's 72% could be included either as exact match or close match. I think this slide comes as the most important slide today. So concept drift and change. So previously when we discussed about the LGBTQ plus related concepts, people are it can be the case that people think, then it used to mean something and now it means something else. So how do we capture this? How do we deal with this in a kind of like a visualized way or at scale, So this is still remains a little bit unclear for people that are in the community. So here I provide a solution for this. So that is that we present to the experts these weakly connected components and then see, for example, how these concepts are drifting. On the right side of the screen, you see one of these examples. Immediately you see that those ones that are highlighted in red, and that are those ones that are no longer maintained no longer in the latest version of Homosaurus. What you can see here is that the top right one, this particular one, that ends with 0102. So this particular one kind of is the node that connects with the rest that is at the lower part of the screen. So this particular one actually also was redirected to the new one. So the funny thing is that here, this redirection actually shows the meaning of BDSM, how BDSM, the scope of BDSM gets broader and broader, eventually became almost the same kind of concept as kinks and fetishes. So this is a very typical example of how two concepts, namely BDSM and kinks and fetishes, somehow they converge. So in the end, what you find is that in Homosaurus, you have kinks and fetishes as the prefLabel, and then you also have as the RDF label, and then you have alternative label for as a BDSM. So that is actually a very interesting phenomenon. Of course, you have all kinds of issues. For example, queer, queen, wolf, daddy, they all mean different things here in the LGBTQ community. Sometimes you also see that the scope of these concepts changed as people deal with it, and then it could be mistake, it could be ambiguity, all kinds of things. As you can see here, even this concept of fetishism, they come in different representations, right? Different ways of labeling. So there's all kinds of issues about it. There are some more examples in the paper that I'm going to show you later. So this last one deals with multilingual information reuse. So the reason that we talk about multilingual information reuse is because we are very interested in having multilingual LGBTQ plus conceptual models. So this is because more and more libraries are interested in indexing their items, especially the LGBTQ part, make it more specific, make it more reliable, make it more searchable. So for that purpose, they are of great interest these days for a lot of people. So we have so previously, most of the researchers, when they come to the development of LGBTQ conceptual models, what they do is that they often search online for alternative labels. Mostly this is manually done. This is actually not so efficient. So I would like to also get you to see the case for QLIT. So in the case of QLIT, in most cases it's like they just don't care about the alternative labels. They just translate the RDFS label, the preferred label, and then that's it. So this is not a very good one, because there are concepts that has multiple ways you can talk about it, right? Multiple labels. So what can we do? We can take advantage of existing labels such as Wikidata and try to do the enrichment or trying to suggest labels. We can then see that, for example, Wikidata has 507 languages regarding LGBTQ concepts, and then GSSO has 77. But GSSO is not really a multilingual one, it's mostly English one. Well, Wikidata is a really multilingual one. So as you look at the labels, you really see that there's all kinds of information here. So for example, Wikidata is fairly simple, but GSSO is more complicated. It has labels, it has synonyms, it has short names, it replaces alternative names, the annotations. Oh wow, so that's all kinds of information. How do we deal with this, and how can we let the experts reuse this information? We did this our little experiment. So here what you can see is that GSSO would be able to suggest the labels for only 48 entities based on our weakly connected component method. And then the top three are English, Danish, and French. A little bit surprising to me why Danish came to the top. And then you also have Wikidata. Wikidata says that, so there's these many labels. How about I give you labels for 429 entities? This could then be used for example, the top 4 languages include English, Spanish, Chinese, and Portuguese. So this time the order came to me without too much of a surprise. But still, this is very interesting, because you would then have already these many labels when it comes to the development of a new language, or extending it with a new language, or development of your own conceptual models. So we have submitted this to the experts in Homosaurus. Similarly, what we did was that we have the QLIT, and then we take information from Wikidata. So of course, this time it's all limited to Swedish. So in this particular case, you see that QLIT already has 914 entities with one preferred label each. And then you also see another 480 alternative labels for different entities. But here we found that there's 775 Swedish labels in Wikidata, and that is for 524 entities. So imagine you have this at the beginning when you work on QLIT, right? So this would speed up your work so much. So we've also submitted it to QLIT, and we hope that they take advantage of these labels. So now it comes to discussion. We realize that this weakly connected component-based approach has this limit, because it would only make sense if the two things, whether it's about link discovery or it's about information reuse, actually happen to be in the same weakly connected component. So there must be a path between A and B. Otherwise, you cannot work this out. This does happen in reality, although not very often, but it does happen. Second situation is that the quality of these newly found links for Homosaurus could not be validated because we didn't get reply from experts. It could take quite some time. Sometimes they just don't reply. Sometimes they're busy working on something else. This also shows that the community needs some kind of efforts or at least some kind of awareness on the importance of this, because you do see that a little bit of change gets accumulated to some big changes, and that is something that deserves some attention. And also we see that Wikidata provides some more labels and in more languages than GSSO. And this I already showed you. So that basically means that Wikidata is more useful, right? So the suggested labels could also violate the formatting of terms. When I say formatting of terms, it could be that, for example, LGBTQ, for example, American gay, Arabic man. So or in some other situations you would say American man bracket LGBTQ, right? So how do you deal with the difference in terms of writing, right? So there's some issues there. And of course, the overlapping of quality and the quality of these suggestions remains unknown. By saying overlapping, that means the existing labels. We also see that there's no altLabels, no alt different from, and then situations where if you would like to leave some of the outdated ones, then you will run into problem. If you would like to include the outdated ones, you would run into the problem of violating the unique name assumption. So that is, again, another issue. So I leave it to the experts, the main experts. Finally, there are some licensing issues. So GSSO and Homosaurus are released under the license of CC by NCND, so no derivation. So for that reason, we actually couldn't publish all the resources that we have. The resources are only available upon request, except those ones about Wikidata and QLIT. So with that being said, I hope I managed to show you the idea of how to construct a knowledge graph with selected relations about identity and their change. And then based on this, using this newly constructed knowledge graph, we used a weakly connected component approach for the analysis of concepts and their changes. So finally, I presented 3 different scenarios that is of urgent needs, let's say, by the community. So regarding future work, one of the possibilities is that you don't really have to limit everything to LGBTQ related conceptual models. Give it a try in your domain. The code is available online, and it's super easy to implement. Even if you are trying to integrate it into your own work, you can very fast complete all the tasks. So especially if you are in this domain, or for example, where your vocabulary evolves very fast, for example, biodiversity libraries, things like that, give it a try. And then we generate some new resources, but the availability is limited. Finally, we were told that this kind of visualization is great. If you have the intention to build a visualization tool for linguistic researchers or people in the domain who doesn't really speak RDF, to somehow navigate through the changes of concepts, that would be great. Sure. So then combining with large language models for NLP, and then see how the concept drifted in the history of literature, that could be another direction of future work. And then, of course, the reuse of multilingual labels could make it faster for the development of multilingual Homosaurus and others. So there are some problems with Wikipedia and Yago, which is, I think, quite complex and nasty and messy inside. So I haven't really got the time to look into that yet. So I leave that for future work. So thank you so much for all the people who have contributed at different levels. And I will be here for questions.
Thank you from the audience.
Have the reference. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. First, big applause for the changing the room during the presentation. You did very great. Yeah.
Sorry, I really wasn't expecting that I was kicked out because they're closing. So
you did a great job. Okay.
I hope I managed to. Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
One question. It's a bit unclear how or Wikidata is very useful indeed. But how do you get to the QRDs? So do you work on existing statements in Wikidata, or did you also use some other techniques?
we have all these links that so basically with our, as I said, right, our scope is limited to only LGBTQ related concepts. So if there is a link from so in Wikidata you have this kind of instead of having our same as, you have another kind of specific kind of relation that deals with concepts in Wikidata and concepts, for example, in Homosaurus. So this is the one that we chose, and then we retrieve all the things that are related, that are included, or basically all the links regarding this relation.
Yeah, so you can do a Sparkle query and find out whether the Wikidata is something in the
Yeah. You just write the Python script and then
that someone has manually inserted the link in there with in Wikidata. Someone need to insert the link in Wikidata before. So yeah.
Oh yes, of course. It was maintained by a group of people, and then sometimes it was, let's say, people who are actually in the Homosaurus community. Sometimes it's just people who are voluntarily doing it. So that's why, you do have a little bit of doubt sometimes about the quality. So basically what I did, it really showed if there are potential errors, where the potential errors are, and then how are they linked. So I hope you find it useful.
Yeah. And I have another second question. So the topic of concept drift and concept change is often mentioned. This is problematic, or we need to deal with it, but yeah, nobody, or it's less tackled than it should be. So yeah, very good. You did something in that direction. You already linked your repository, so you provide tools that can be reused, or do you have ideas for tools to be created that could be directly be applied if people want to analyze whether concept drift can be shown in their vocabularies?
So all the code is available for free. So feel free to use them, reuse them, develop it, or extend it further. I think this is. I think the approach is in general very easy to be adapted to other domains. I think the code, we tried to make it modular, but still it was not very, very modular. So you probably need to think a little bit at some point where for example, the path is hard-coded or something. But I think this is the first step was making this clear, I think in the domain at least. So previously people were talking about it, but mostly you just really only talk about one concept, drift to a little bit different, and then drift a little bit different, right? So now that we have all this, that shows how, for example, how many of these deal with convergence, how many of them deal with divergence, what kind of new meanings were added to some words. So you really can now perform this kind of statistical analysis, which is what I included in the future work. I think the one of the capabilities of this weakly connected components is that you really just you just really focus on a few of these terms. But of course, feel free to use also large language models, right? So and then see how you can do that comparison, and then see how large language models understand it. Would it then be able to capture also the concept drift? If you ask them the large language models, if for example in 1950s would the term queer has a negative meaning in it? So feel free to do all this kind of comparison and see the drift of concepts. Yeah.
Okay, so we can follow discussion in online.